Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, we're going to recap Fight to Win 160 that was headlined by William Tackett versus John Combs. I almost said William Combs there. We're going to preview Fight to Win 161, headlined by Roberto Cyborg Abreu versus Tim Spriggs. Talk a little bit about the BJJ Stars V Heavyweight GP that got announced with. We all have the names.
Super exciting.
And some other matches, and a little bit of some other stuff as well. As always in the show, I'm your host, Main, with my co-host.
Zach.
How you doing, Zach?
Good.
Good to have you back. We bumped the show an hour because I was out hunting, and that might be part of the outro section of the show. So a little bit of news. I have jack all for news this week, except for, you have any BJJ news?
Not really, no.
The one thing that we do have out is the BJJ Stars V Heavyweight GP. We got all the names announced. They've been releasing. They did that thing where they have all the silhouettes, and they slowly fill in the pictures as you're like, who is it? And I know that I recognize those ears. That's Erbeth. Or that's definitely Meregali. I had put something on the Grappling Rewind Instagram. You should follow that if you do not already. That was basically on the story of, hey, who do you think these names are? And I basically got a bunch of responses from people that are like, this is this guy, this is this guy, this is this guy, this is this guy. Because everyone uses the same pictures over and over again. And so once you've learned the silhouette, you're like, okay, that's Erbeth's 2018 picture. That's this. It's Meregali's this picture. So names for this event, we have Luiz Panza, we have Erich Muniz, we have Lucas the Hulk Barbosa, we have Gutemburg Pereira, we have Mahamed Aly, we have Felipe Pena, we have Erbeth Santos and Nicholas Meregali. That is a fucking stacked
Any one
event.
of these guys, if they show up, can take it.
Yeah. In the pre-show, we talked about it a little bit. At any point in time, there's every single guy here can have a day and just
can win.
And just
win. Yeah. Anyone on this card can have a great day and beat anyone else on this card, and they're all very high-level competitors. It's going to be really exciting.
Probably going to be Meregali, though.
What?
It's probably going to be Meregali.
I don't know. Meregali had a weird end of 2019, 2020. He didn't compete that much in 2020. The Hulk was incredible in 2020.
Yeah.
Luiz Panza's looked really good recently.
Hands, right?
Yeah. I think he took third in his division, but he did it in our second. I don't think he won his division, but he did it in a way
that looked
fantastic.
Fashion.
Yeah, he looked really good in all of his matches.
Then you have the up-and-coming prodigy of Erich Muniz.
Yeah.
Which is everyone's how's it going to look in a legit black belt?
We're gonna find out.
We're very shortly gonna find out. You got Gutemburg Pereira, who's always just he's honestly the most thing I can put it for Gutemburg is he's just frustrating to compete against. He's gonna play he's gonna slow you down and make you play one style of game against him, and it's gonna he frustrates guys.
Yeah.
Mahamed Aly is a 6'8". 265.
He's not really 6'8",
he's not
is he?
6'8". He's 6'4", 6'5".
Okay.
But next to me, I come up to his pec muscle, he's about 6'8". Man.
Sure. Yeah.
Everyone above 6'3" is 6'8". Mahamed Aly is Mahamed Aly, and at any point in time,
incredible competitor all the time.
Can just truck dudes.
Yep.
I hate that that's where I go to for Mahamed Aly. Is just
he's very skilled, but he does it in a way where he's going to dominate you with athleticism in a very skilled way.
He has all these techniques that he uses, and it's but I always remember he's just trying to truck guys. I feel that's so dismissive of his technique. Felipe Pena. What do you want to say about Felipe Pena? Just world champion,
ADCC,
crazy good. Erbeth, who again, if Erbeth shows up, can beat anyone in the world.
Yep.
If Herbert shows up, he's going to tap them out. If he has to fight Meregali, he's going to get pissed at some point and quit.
Yeah.
But
we could see him win or we could see him quit.
That's really what happens. Very few guys beat Erbeth clean. He usually would just
Oh, that's hard to say because he quits first.
But that's what I mean.
Right?
You we watched him. If you ever haven't seen his match, go back and watch his match versus Meregali. I want to say it was at Spider or one of the BJJ Stars events.
I think it was a BJJ. No, I can't.
I think it was Spider.
Sure.
And he is
I remember the match.
Playing Meregali's game with
he was
Meregali.
winning.
And he was winning. And you're holy shit, he is
he's here today.
Everything that Meregali does to guys that just trucks them, they can't deal with that level of pressure. Erbeth is in there with him and attacking on it.
Yeah.
And then Meregali need him a little bit in the head coming to mount, and he quit. Yeah. And it was bro, you're so good.
No, he quit before that though. He had gotten swept, and then
that was the moment that
That was when it ended.
Go back and watch that. Also, go back and watch the Erbeth versus Felipe Pena fight from BJJ Stars 1.
Yeah.
So it's a classic.
Yeah.
When Erbeth rushed Pena's brother, and I always think it was just a funny moment. And they said, we're never going to compete again for us. And BJJ Stars 5, here we come. And BJJ Stars 3 and BJJ Stars 4.
Yeah. And then even the super fights for this match, or for this event, are pretty killer. Leandro Lowe versus Batista.
Leandro?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Leandro?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Zach, you're not the name guy.
Is it Okay,
Leandro.
Fine. Leandro.
Okay.
Oh. I know more people named Leandro, and so it's hard for me to...
I don't know anyone named Leandro.
I know like 3 Leandros.
Huh. Give me the next one.
No.
I think, honestly, Leandro versus Gustavo Batista is going to be a really good match.
We haven't seen a lot of Lowe lately.
Now, and Batista, we've seen him
often
look really... I mean, especially look at all the Third Coast Grappling Kumites. Like, he's on a lot of those.
Yeah.
Always in the mix. Looked really good. This is a fun one.
This is going to be a good match.
I'll watch some footage from both these guys before. They've had to have fought each other before, and I'm curious to see how they stand right now. Next one, Roberto Jimenez versus Zaki Bahens. This is a Nogi one. Very interesting matchup. Very curious to see how Roberto looks against Bahens or Bahens, depending on how you want to say it.
Why I wouldn't announce this one.
I've heard him called the same thing on a single event before. Zaki Bahens, Zaki Bahens.
Yeah.
I'm super curious about this because I wouldn't say they both play a similar game, but they both have a similar way that they like to engage. They kind of take their preferred range. Just like the style of the engagement between these two guys is very, very similar in like both hunting the submission. I think Roberto is definitely more of a hunter than Zaki here.
Sure.
But the dynamic is going to be fun to see play out. Next, we have Bia Mesquita versus Tama Ferreira. This is definitely a rematch. I think they're 1-1 now.
I don't remember.
Is what I think they were. I think Tamara took one over her, and I think Bia's most recent match, she beat her. I forget what organization it was, but it was a very, very close match. We have Milton Vera versus Gabriel Rollo. We have Mario Hayes versus Leo Armacaro.
Sounds right to me.
Yep, and Zach before the show was like, "Oh, Mario Hayes," and I was like, "Who?" He was Meregali's coach, bro.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, right.
Yeah.
That makes sense." Look, you haven't seen him compete in a bit here, actually.
In a while, yeah.
So it's cool to see him on there. Some other matches on the card should be absolutely a ton of fun. I can't wait till we actually get a bracket out for the heavyweight GP, because that is going to determine a lot of
the predictions.
Who Meregali is going to beat first.
Yeah.
And then where they're.
I think if Erbeth is in a bracket, a side of the bracket where he can build a little momentum, he's got a really strong chance of winning.
If he can get to his first match and get into start to have a good second match.
Yeah.
We could see him totally go all the way.
Yeah,
that's the crazy thing. Like, he can contend with Pena, he can contend with Meregali, he can contend with literally all these guys and has wins over most of these guys, and actually subs over some of these guys.
Them, yeah.
So
it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, it's a super good bracket. Other than that, for news, I have nothing.
It'd be hard not to talk about Holloway's fight this weekend.
That's MMA news, but I do kind of want to talk about it. MMA records,
ridiculous.
Max Holloway breaking his own record,
but also breaking like 9 records total,
at least. So if you haven't seen the fight, spoiler alert: Max Holloway beat the brakes off Calvin Kattar. 50-43, 50-43, 50-42.
Yeah.
If you know how MMA math works, that should speak to the level that it went to.
Yeah.
Max Holloway previously had the... we're going to get into BJJ here in a minute, but this was an amazing fight, and I do want to talk about it on the show. Usually we save it for the outro, but it was super exciting this week.
We don't have much
There's no
news.
other news, so I do want to talk about this.
Yeah.
And I also love stats, and Emil's not here this week, so I gotta champion the stats for Emil. Max Holloway previously had the significant strike record versus his 4-round fight with Brian Ortega that I actually watched this week, like the day before the fight, because it was on like Fox or it was on some channel. And I sat down with my uncle, and I was like, "You should watch this fight. It's statistically the biggest ass beating in history." And he was like, "Okay, I'll watch it with you." I think that fight was, I'm gonna get it wrong, 290 significant strikes for Holloway. Number 2 was Diaz versus Cerrone at 263. If you've seen that fight, it's a 3-round fight. Diaz beats the brakes off Cerrone.
Yeah.
Crazy fight, very good fight, but crazy good fight. Holloway now has the record at the time of this recording, 445 significant strikes landed in a bout.
I don't know how true this is. This was something that I just like casually saw on probably Instagram or Reddit or something like that. I don't know.
Probably Reddit.
Probably. I don't know. But someone said that 400 some strikes not only broke the significant strike record for a single person, but broke the record for significant strikes by both competitors in any UFC fight.
In a bout.
In a bout.
Like, a bout, like, the total strikes that Holloway had in that fight
was more than any other fighters in any fight.
Any fight. Like, that is how absurd. Like, the best thing is, Holloway already had the record. And he didn't almost double, like, put a good 40% on the record.
And also, at a certain point in the middle of the fight, he stops fighting, he stops throwing punches, continues to dodge punches, and screams at the commentators, "I'm the best boxer in MMA."
And then
continues to have the conversation with them while throwing the occasional punch.
And then he looks at the commentary staff, no-looks jabs Kattar in the face, and then yells, "I'm the best boxer in the UFC again," and then keeps fighting.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the fight, you owe it to yourself to watch the fight. They're still coming up with, like, I saw a whole list today of, like, other records he's broken that we figured out. Like, I don't know, I could ever do that. There, I saw a great graph as well, and it was strikes attempted versus strikes landed, and there's a huge, like, standard deviation scatter plot.
Sure.
And then there's, like, a dot here, which is like, oh, that's the first Holloway and Ortega fight, and there's a dot, like, here, which is like, oh, that's so it gives a good demonstration of about 5,000 UFC fights, and that scatter plot had every UFC fight from UFC 38 onward.
Oh,
and it gave you it showed that, like,
how crazy of an outlier this fight was.
And the thing is, it's crazy that a fight like that can exist. Yeah. Calvin Kattar is tough as shit. Like, holy fuck. B, Holloway's done it twice.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
Like,
what's even crazier is that I'm not sure that after all of this COVID weight that I've put on, that I could throw that many significant strikes against a bag in 5 rounds without getting too tired.
That's a fight. It's a strike every 3.2 seconds for the duration of a 25-minute fight. In round 4, he threw 141 strikes. Landed, I think, 140. It's like
it's like at a point where that's not physically possible to beat. But, anyways, we're here to talk about jiu-jitsu.
We are. So that was in crazy combat sports news. Yeah. I've been watching more MMA recently because MMA is sort of my first love. And then jiu-jitsu superseded that, and now we have a little less jiu-jitsu, so I'm getting back in MMA, and it was just a batshit insano fight.
Yeah.
Congrats to both those guys. That you need a 200K bonus for that one.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Deserve it.
Rest in peace, CTE. So, moving on. Anything else on that bout aside from it being absolutely? Let me cut you off 18 times.
No, that's it.
It was crazy. So, moving on to our recap. Fight to win 160. This one took place in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Nope.
Different place. This one took place in Miami and was headlined by William Tackett defeating John Combs via split decision. Zach, where do you want to start with this one?
Tackett Combs, I think. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start with in the bout that we talked?
Yeah. So the bout itself, good overall. There were a ton of really nice exchanges. It starts off with Tackett pulling guard right away, and then Combs Tackett pulls guard right away, and then ends up getting this really nice stand-up sweep with the single leg, and then that leads to a crazy exchange, and then they're back up, and then there's another exchange. It actually got to points where there would be 2 minutes of the match that passed, and you had a hard time keeping track of who was on top and who was on bottom how many times, right? There was just a lot of nice exchanges.
Both guys were really active, too.
Yeah, they were very active.
I definitely saw, kind of through the course of the match, we had Tackett much more offensive with the footlock attempts, but also using them in combination to get on top, working pass attempts off of that. And, I really like the way that Tackett's game is on display here, because we're seeing him have a combination of ability to attack the feet when available to him, and couple that with dominant top position work and trying to get to the top, trying to get to the next. He's not just a foot locker, even though we kind of have seen him mostly recently work to the foot. He can stand up, he can foot lock, he can grapple up.
This fight he played very loose, and I mean that like in a good way. He played a very loose game where he was flexible with his attacks and mobile. And I think even the commentators at a couple times mentioned how mobile he was with his hips. What I actually want to see after this fight in particular, because he did such a nice job keeping this sort of active attack situation going, I really want to see him against someone that you would usually call a very boring fighter, someone that plays a very hot, like top-heavy, pressure-oriented game. I want to see him against someone that has the capability of shutting down his hips to see if he's capable of mounting an offense after that.
I want to see him versus Wagner. The matchup that was
I was actually thinking Wagner. I mean, Wagner's not boring ever, but like I was thinking someone with Wagner's type of style where he's playing a little bit heavier in the hips for his passing, because here Combs was doing a nice job passing. Like, he wasn't technically doing anything wrong. He was just the style of passing that Combs was playing is the style that feeds into the offense Tackett was playing with his hips. And I think we've seen this sort of offense from Tackett over and over again, and he's gotten better and better at it. And it also seems like maybe it's just that he's gotten so good at it that he doesn't have to do other things.
I think that was what I saw here, was that the fluidity in which he was addressing what Combs was doing, and like the speed, like you weren't seeing a whole lot of slop in kind of the intermediary positions that Tackett was willing to engage with. He would see Combs do something, he would counter, and then in that counter, he would set himself up in a place where maybe he was sort of at an impasse with Combs, but at any certain point in time, he could elect to disengage the position or move the position to another way, and he would never get to a point where he would get stuck.
Yeah.
And that
but it was also very clear that
here.
Combs wanted to be in that range as well. Combs was mounting his offense from in that same range, and so it's hard to tell. Like, I'm by no means saying that Tackett doesn't have the capability of handling someone that's staying close with heavy pressure into the hips, but I want to see it. Like, this made me want to see that, because I want to see how he's going to react, and I want to see what his game looks like against that, and I want to see if he's at the caliber now where we can say, okay, this dude can compete with anyone no matter what's happening, or if he's just really, really good at these stylistic matchups where we haven't really seen someone that plays a little bit more of an old school heavy pressure passing type of game, which is less and less common, so maybe it doesn't matter. But
I think, again, a guy like Wagner's still at the top, like ADCC medalist now, and like I think, especially with Tackett being a little bigger and Wagner going up to 85, and now Tackett's ranked at both 70 and 85, I think the matchup that we initially saw for this, which was William versus Wagner, is really the matchup to kind of make, because I think that matchup is going to challenge Tackett in ways that, like, Wagner's just going to be mean to you.
Yeah.
And he's not going to let you get your game open. He's going to slow you down. He's going to make you engage the fight where he wants to engage the fight. And he's extremely hard to sweep. He's got really good balance. One of his students, Adam Ferreira, fought Junior Ocasio and played that very like low X guard passing style that we've seen Wagner use versus Dante Leon, and like repeatedly just very difficult to get over. And Wagner's not going to give you anything that you really want to work with. He's
not going to let you play
things
in the range that you want to play in. He's going to make sure that you're not doing what you want to be doing. And so I think that's going to be a really interesting matchup. It was already planned, so I imagine that it's going to happen at some point. Yeah. There's other people that could fit that niche for me too.
Definitely. But
someone
the caliber of Wagner. We know a guy like Wagner can consistently do that and consistently perform against that. I think it's gonna, for me, depending on how that match goes, it's gonna eliminate a lot of X factors for like, oh, Wagner had a weird night, because Wagner usually doesn't have a weird night. He just competes at that level.
Just good,
But yeah, overall, like, a really interesting match. There's nothing really specifically I can point to here.
There was one interesting exchange for me, and this was actually probably the most technical thing that I took from the night from watching these fights, and it was actually Combs' defense. And so there was a period, it was a long period, where Tackett was working on a calf crusher, and I was fingers crossed, praying to the gods of leg locks that he would finish it, because I love calf crushers, and I don't think that they're used enough in professional jiu-jitsu. They're hard positions to get into, right?
Yeah, and they're hard positions to honestly usually get enough leverage to make guys hurt enough to tap. Right.
And this is actually where I was going with this. I'm glad you brought that up, because Combs did a fantastic job defending this by not giving him the leverage that he needs. And so for a calf crusher, I mean, it seems obvious, but for a calf crusher, you have to be able to
be specific about what calf crusher you're talking about here. Because
there's a bunch.
There's a lot of different calf crushers. You're talking about the one where he had the arm in the center calf
so Tackett had his, he went back and forth, but he had his legs figure forward over Combs' leg. So his calf was across Combs' thigh, and Tackett's butt was sort of resting on Combs' foot, and then he has
foot and shin and instep,
sort of instep, right? And then he has his own forearm underneath the knee pit, right? And so in this particular position, you need to be able to bring your hips. So essentially what you end up doing is you use that arm in the calf to pull your butt closer to your opponent's hips, and then you really use the figure four just to maintain the position. Sorry.
No, you're good.
You really use the figure four just to maintain the position as you sort of like pull your butt in close to their foot, and then that pushes their foot into their butt. And that's the goal of the whole position, is that the whole goal of the submission is that I'm going to get your foot to touch your butt, and then your knee's not meant to bend with a wrist in between there. And that's
it's meant to be flat there, and then you're putting a distance of a forearm or a wrist or whatever in the way, and then the knee separates, and then it makes a weird pop noise, and then the person looks at you, and you go, "Are you okay?" And they go, "Oh, that's not good."
Honestly, more often than not, you get this intense cramp in the calf before that happens, and then people tap like crazy, right?
Yeah, or they don't, and we have what happened when I looked at someone and asked, "Were you good?" and they said they were good, and then I blew their leg apart.
Yeah, sure.
Because
happens.
I didn't know that they weren't good because they told me they were good.
Yeah,
makes a disgusting little noise. I like this position a lot. I don't use this actually a lot since that injury happened.
Yeah.
Not to me, but to the guy I was doing it to.
Calf crushers are my like go-to weird thing. They're the thing that I go to. I try to hit calf crushers from every position possible because they're unexpected and I freaking love them.
They're also, when you set them up good, they're nice. This is you don't see this one finished a ton, but it's dangerous. And again, back to what you were saying.
Oh yeah,
Combs'
defense is and this is a good defense for this. No matter what happens, Combs keeps his toes on the mat facing Tackett. He keeps his knee pointed down Tackett's center line, which is sort of the opposite of what you want to be doing in a lot of these leg lock situations. And I think it's counterintuitive, and that's part of the reason that you can get or calf crushers often, is because the defense of them is a little bit counterintuitive. But he keeps the knee pointed down Tackett's center line towards his face, and he keeps his hips open towards so that his hips are open with Tackett's hips.
Yeah.
Right. So they're facing the same direction. And if you do that, then the person attacking the calf crusher, in this case Tackett, doesn't have the ability to pull his hips in because your foot's on the floor, your knee's stable almost in a 90-degree position, and you're like slightly less than 90 degrees. But then with your hips opened up, you have mobility to move backward a little bit and then keep them from tucking their hips in underneath your butt. And so what Tackett needed to do here was actually turn towards the footlocks, or turn towards his figure four side, to make sure that Combs' butt was on the mat, and then he could start creeping in because there's no leverage on the foot anymore. And he almost did it at a certain point, and then Combs was able to like scoot his hip out and then get back up onto his knee and start defending the calf crusher again. And Combs just looked calm the whole time, and he was good, right? He was good. It was fine. He could be calm because he was just stable in that position.
Well, and he what I really appreciated about the exchange was, if you didn't know what was happening, it wouldn't look like much because Tackett was pretty calm. He wasn't feverishly going for anything, and Combs was very calm and making the position, making the angle he needed to keep his leg at the right angle to prevent the foot from being tucked under. And it was a really nice exchange because you saw both guys know what was happening, address what was happening, but no guy was feverishly working for the finish.
But I also think this was a case that, like, as a casual observer, if you're not like really well versed in calf crushers, which most people are not, it might look like, holy shit, how is this not working? Like, why wouldn't this work? Why isn't Combs tapping?
I've seen a lot of guys where it looks very, very similar to this, and you see the guy go and like scream in pain. Versus
positionally, he has the figure four locked up right. He's got his forearm in properly. His hips are tight, and if you don't know better, like, it looks like he should be winning the match right there.
And that's why. So that was a cool little exchange. There were a lot of like cool little exchanges like that.
Cool exchanges in there.
There was a thing I love that I saw Tackett doing a couple times where you go for the foot and then you would use the foot lock to tack up off of it to get top position.
Did that a lot.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I really appreciate, we're seeing more and more. Again, I like guys that use footlocks to get top position. I like it a lot because ADCC rewards top position. And I like that we're seeing, like, the shift in meta is there where it's like everyone is pretty good at defending leg locks now. And so guys that can only do leg locks, it's a little frustrating because it's like you're just not going to leg lock that guy. Like,
Yeah.
it's like Paulo Miyao is just not going to tap the leg locks. Like, you've got to be able to do something else to him, because it's like you're not going to win the match this way. So we're starting to see more disengagement, but keeping the position to tuck the hips under to get up and start passing off of that, versus what we saw a couple years ago, which was a guy going for a footlock is going for a footlock. He's not going to do anything else with that footlock.
Yeah.
And again, Tackett's that new wave of younger grappler that we're starting to see implement, and he has ADCC aspirations, and implement that style where it's like, well, I can go for the foot. I mean, we saw it 2 weeks ago against Maidana, but against Felipe Andrew.
Yeah.
And he's beaten Felipe Andrew twice with heel hooks, and he can do that. He's very good at heel hooks, but he can also tech up and pass. He has a dynamism into what he can do with those positions that makes me very, very excited to see him moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's a great progression in the meta too. I think that's the meta progression that I hope for, right? Because we're starting to get a little bit bored watching people just play laying entanglements and not finish, right?
Because guys, like, the defense has gotten so good that unless you're a guy like a Craig Jones or like a couple other grapplers, guys just have the ability to, even like Thor can just, like, if he gets you right, he's going to get you. But guys a lot of times have enough defense where they can just defend out, and you get in these stally matches. So I'm appreciating that we're seeing passing,
me too,
repeated passing from Tackett.
Me too.
So very fun match. It's worth it. It's a very interesting match between both guys. We cover both guys a ton. It's a main event match. Go back and watch the match, because there's a lot of little things, and these guys are both sort of at the forefront of the meta moving into ADCC, especially for that kind of younger generation of competitors that are coming up and competing in trials in ADCC. So I feel like this is what we're going to see more of moving into the future, and I'm very, very pleased for that and the developments that both these guys make. Combs is a former trials winner, for a reason.
Yeah, so, agreed.
Very, very exciting. So next match. Anything else on this match?
Nope.
It was a very, very good match. Again, I'm super high on both guys, so I can talk about it for a very long time. Gi match, we have Jonathan Gracie defeating Hugo Marquez via split decision.
Yep. There were some interesting points in the match, especially towards the beginning. I feel like this is a theme for Jonathan Gracie's matches. Like, there'll be some exciting stuff happen in the first 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we end up with a,
your favorite match, 50-50 footlocks?
Yeah, 50-50 butt stuff. And so Marquise pulls guard immediately. Jonatas is actually playing a really nice pressure passing game for quite a while here. And then Marquise gets the single leg stand-up sweep. Jonatas plays... I really liked watching Jonatas De La Riva guard work here. He was doing a really good job, which is something that you don't see a lot of. I think with De La Riva, I feel at the professional level, a lot of times I see guys that are clearly working for the back, and that's what they're doing. Their whole De La Riva is set up to try to work to the back.
Well, it's that outside. It's that really, really not flared outside hook where they're trying to get the angle and trying to turn you, and it's like there's going to be no. The only direction that they're looking to go is to get the far side leg into the close side knee and then push away, and that's like
that's what they're trying to do.
That's all they're trying to do, and they're going to lead in the lapels, and like there's all this kind of meta that happens there.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and it's fine, and it's a good strategy. There's also the sort of I guess more classic De La Riva where you're looking for sit up guards and you're looking to
attack the front as opposed to almost like
just the back,
Berimbolo to the back, essentially.
And so I feel like most of the time when I see people that are good at De La Riva, it's one or the other. You're either playing the back attack game or you're playing the sort of front attack game, I guess we can call it.
We see, like you said, less of the front attack game.
Less and less over time.
Yeah.
But Jonatas here was doing a great job switching back and forth between the two. And so he would sort of reach up for the belt and start attacking the back. And then Marquise would square up and stabilize. And then Jonatas would sort of give him a yank forward and sit up into sit-up guard and get the sweep off of that, or play into the normal, I guess, classic De La Riva guard sweeps where he was attempting that. And then when those got defended, he would switch back to the back. And so like he was doing this really nice thing where he was playing De La Riva in the very two common ways, but I don't usually see people visibly switching back and forth between the two.
I mean, it's especially in the gi, it's guys really heavily grabbing double-handed on that front lapel on the De La Riva hook side, pulling down as hard as they possibly can, and essentially stalling in that position as much as they can, trying to fence out the outside leg to off balance so that they can roll over and get there. And that's
like that.
I mean, we do see a lot of kind of variation of that, but overall, that is sort of the meta in the current De La Riva, because A, that grip is so hard to break, and B, like blow the back, if I can get your back, I win, essentially. And sort of at the high level in the modern game, like, if I can get there, I just win. So that's where guys are looking for. They're not usually looking to get to the top or get to side control and pass. Like, the shift for what it takes to win is very different now.
But I really enjoyed watching him play that sort of switching back and forth between those two styles. I think he did a really nice job with it. And then eventually they end up in leg lock entanglement, where Giannatis started with a straight ankle lock, and then Marquise got his own, and then they sit there for a little while.
You're 50-50 straight ankle locks in the gi, and the shitty thing about that position is typically like the guy that decides to do something first loses.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw. Both guys went, okay, cool, we're both high-level grapplers. I know that we're in a sub-only, sub-only, but it's time limit. So if I do something, I'm going to lose. So I'm going to sit here and attack this foot and hope that prior to this in the match, I've done more.
Yeah.
And Giannatis had done more, really, in the match.
And I think in the 50-50 nonsense that was happening, he also had more like what were legitimate, they were closer to legitimate attempts at submissions, right? He had like a couple toe hold attempts in there, a couple things that were actually reasonable attempts at straight ankle locks. Whereas Marquise, I feel like, kind of was just holding onto the straight ankle lock position rather than like really threatening too many submissions. And so like I think Gracie probably got it off of that in combination with how he played earlier.
Again, it was a split decision, so it was a close. Actually, both were split decisions. There was a lot of split decisions on the card. And I was kind of surprised about the Tackett split decision and the Giannatis Gracie split decision here. For me, those were not, I'm going to say straightforward, but watching the match and having given all the fight to win matches that we've watched, I've watched over 100 cards now of fight to win. I was like, okay, that's probably pretty clearly a Tackett win.
I agree
here.
For the Tackett match for sure.
The
I really
Gracie
thought
match
that
was close, but I just feel like, again, what you said of the footlock attempts in the 50-50 and the switching between the toe hold and like the legitimately entering into attacks that sort of required peripheral defense was what gets that done versus Hugo that had some good offense, but really wanted the straight ankle lock there, and that's what he was looking for.
Yeah, I agree. But Giannatis pulls it off in the end. I think that's a deserved win, although the last 7 minutes of the fight were
7 minutes or so. We're
a little boring.
But the beginning of the match was really interesting. Go back and watch it for the De La Riva. We don't see as much combination De La Riva work, and it's kind of a shame.
It made me wish that we would see more of Giannatis playing that kind of jiu-jitsu versus where we often see him end up in this 50-50 situation, because I feel like he was really showing how skilled he is at playing jiu-jitsu. But more often than not, with his matches, I feel like we end up seeing 50-50 stally kind of things.
A lot of matches.
I wish I could see more of him.
He's sort of that De La Riva game will end up a lot of times getting countered into 50-50 now. So it's really it's sort of a double-edged sword where it's like, well, either get what you got going, which is hard against top-level competition, or you die in 50-50.
That's fair.
Next match, we have Pedro Mourinho versus Gabriel Almeida. No-gi match. This one is a decision for Pedro, really on a couple of guillotine attempts. This match was primarily Pedro and Gabriel on the feet. Hand fighting.
A lot of hand fighting.
Yeah, that was the entirety of the match. There was a couple interesting takedown sequences that I really liked. Both guys, you saw shot and reshot. Which is something I was very, very pleased to see, especially when guys get into the habit of what they were both doing towards the end of the match, which was the head-on-head collar tie. When you're hand fighting and pushing, is guys, as they get a little tired, as they get into the match, will tend to lean their torsos over more and rest more of their weight on each other, and their hips will come back. And so as a result, if you start to work snap down or not go behind, but a sideways snap down, whatever the
just a snap down
term that is. We saw sprawl, and then we saw a reshot from Almeida and Pedro. We'd see them both go down and shoot and then counter off of the shot sprawl with their own shot, which is something that in wrestling they teach. I've learned 4 wrestling things. I always learn shot reshot. If you shoot once, you keep shooting until he goes down. And then in jiu-jitsu, I've always found that was, even at the highest level, that was a relatively uncommon thing to see.
At the highest level, nobody shoots.
Yeah, because that's usually bad for you. But I'm saying at the higher levels, you see people will go for a shot or a single leg, and then typically they'll get sprawled, and then that's
it's a big complaint of mine for jiu-jitsu as well.
And so it was really cool in this match to see the shot, reshot, and like both guys countering and working off of, like, once the shot started to get going, once somebody would commit to it, they were engaged. And really, Pedro did a fantastic job 3 separate times in this match of locking up the guillotine and rolling with it. And credit to Almeida here with the way he was defending it. Yeah. He did. It's the defense that you should be doing if you're the guillotine specialist is you get your shoulders and back flat to the mat. Yeah. And it's scary to do that because essentially you have to make enough distance to get underneath and roll down. Yep. But if you don't, the guillotine specialist is going to murder you because if your shoulders are up, my elbows can get behind your shoulders. Yep. If you get your back flat to the mat, my elbows are all of a sudden hitting the mat, and I can't put the pressure on your neck I need to. I actually have to lift you. I'm out to guillotine. I have to lift you off the mat. And so 3 different times, I was like, oh, Pedro's got this. And Gabriel would fall to his back, roll, and basically, in essence, like scrape Pedro's positioning off the neck because he would get so flat to the mat. And it's just, you don't see it a whole lot because it's
a great
super
defense,
scary
but I was surprised that Pedro was not more aggressive with capitalizing on position after that. You know, like I know that he's looking for the guillotine, but it seemed like to me there were a couple times where when that happened, Pedro could have released the guillotine and turned into north-south or something along those lines. But
as a guy in myself that goes for way too many guillotines, what I'm guessing here is there's a confidence that Pedro has in his guillotine and in his squeeze. And when he feels it, he knows he has it. Yeah. And so when Gabriel's, pression and like calm and does the right defense, he's going, my hands are in the position where I know I can finish you. And all of a sudden, like, I'm just not finishing you. And it's weird. And I'm so used to finishing guys when I get to this positioning that even if you fall to the side, you saw a lot of what Pedro did is he would keep it even after the spin happened. And he would try to basically roll on his top side shoulder. And then what he was going to do, or I'm used to guys doing, is they'll get to the side control with that and finish it as a guillotine neck crank. Yeah. But because Gabriel was putting his hands up and blocking the position, Pedro was not able to get over the hands and back in position. Sure. I've spent way too much time trying to guillotine people. Sure. And that's why partially why I really love Pedro Marinho matches, because he fights a guillotine in a way that I understand very, very well. And so all the defense is like, man, I've seen guys do that to me. It's super annoying. It's also super rare to see at the level that I am at. Yeah. That to guys like Gabriel Almeida to do what they did. And that's what I'm guessing is Pedro was just very, very confident in that hand positioning because his hand positioning was great on the snap down. The chest and shoulders are in the right place on the back of the spine, on the back of the neck. And he goes for the squeeze. He has the squeeze. He has the positioning. And Gabriel's just like, oh, I better not die. And, I was able to go through those positions. So that's what I was guessing was happening. That's a huge reach on my part. Yeah. But
it's possible. It also kind of seemed like Pedro just wanted the guillotine. Mm-hmm. Even in all their hand fighting exchanges, it kind of seemed like those takedown attempts and the takedown attempt exchanges, I guess you could say, all felt to me like Pedro setting up guillotines, not like actual attempts at takedowns,
Which, because Pedro has a good takedown game. We've seen him hit outside singles. We've seen him hit trips. We've seen him, especially even in the last year, he has a relatively dynamic takedown game. But
it just felt like he was really focused on getting that guillotine, which is maybe deserving. Like, if it's your thing and you're good at it, then why wouldn't you be focused on it?
He's very good at it. We've seen him, punch up hard with that technique. Yeah. But there was a couple places where he would grab it, and then instead of using it to take down with, he would go for it as like a finish. And I'm curious to see if, again, it's a technique he keeps leaning into, if we're going to see him kind of modulate that at the black belt level into kind of what Hinger does, which is a whole combination of things.
That is exactly who I was thinking of. And you see Hinger, people defend like Almeida was doing against Hinger, and then he ends up in mount.
Yeah.
Right?
He has a tendency to, Hinger will use the front headlock position and the guillotine position in a way that is an entire sort of system and game. And Pedro seemed to be throwing that as like, I am amazing with this one technique, and if I get you good, I can grab you. But he didn't seem like he was willing to
transition.
Yeah, transition out of that to get good position.
That's what I felt. That's what it felt like to me, but it's hard to say because
I think that's a really good take. Yeah. And I assume and I'm guessing that we're going to see, continued improvement from Marinho because we've seen continued improvement from him. I think he's a brand new black belt. And sorry, I know he's a brand new black belt. Mm-hmm. and he's been competing at this level for a couple of years now. I assume he's going to continue to expand his game. I would like to see him use that, like sort of what Hinger does in more positional work, because this was, again, a comfortable decision, but I think he could have easily showcased a lot more top control, because there was 2 separate times in the match that, he was...
3, I think, that he could have capitalized
on.
Well,
I think the first one, he was like, you're going for the guillotine. The second 2 were ones that he could have, I think, stepped over with it and controlled the top, but he elected to really just sell on the guillotine, which in the fight to win rule set, I do understand.
Sure. Yeah.
And it gets him a straight decision here, but it was just overall interesting match, but interesting match for the exchanges, but there were only 3 of those exchanges in the match.
There was a lot of just standing around.
The majority of the match was a lot of hand fighting. So go back and watch the little exchanges there, and there's a lot of just stand-up hand fighting. And there's a takedown off the stage, partially, which I always appreciate. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Next match, we have a no-gi match. We have Juni Acasio defeating Adam Ferreira via inside heel hook. Point of clarity, the commentary staff was kind of confused going into this match that Juni may or may not have lost the belt to Kennedy Maciel. That was the match that they had was at a catchweight bout. Or actually at 145, Juni is still the champion at 135, the bantamweight champion for Fight to Win. That match with Kennedy where he lost via armbar was not for the belt because it was not at 35. Just so everyone knows that. It was Juni going up to be a gangster and, Kennedy being able to deal with that. In this match, goddamn, Juni
he's good.
He plays such a strange game. And every time I talk to Juni about like what he does, he's like, I play my own game. And the way that he enters into stuff and the way that he hooks and transitions through the leg locks, like,
unique.
Shit, it's unique. And it's almost frustrating, not frustrating, it's for me a little bit frustrating. It's in awe, but also frustrating because I'm trying to figure out exactly how to explain what he's doing on the podcast. And I'm like, he just underhooks the leg and he's entering, but he's entering in a way that I can't have like an analogy for someone else. Kind of looks like old school Eddie Cummings a little bit, which makes sense because Cummings was at Unity for a while and Casio trained with Cummings, but really sort of has his own leg lock style that isn't actually Cummings. It's his own thing.
We see so much of Danaher's influence on the leg lock game and leg lock entanglements from everyone these days. It makes it more difficult to understand when someone's not using that approach.
It's like you see Apollo Harris leg locks. They look different than like what Craig Jones uses. They look different than what Gordon used to use, and they look different than what like a guy like Cummings and Acasio use. And it's like there are 4 of those, and then Lister has a whole collection of stuff that looks like it's something. Like those
Lister's
are sort of
who I was thinking of as like a good example of someone that has great control, great entanglement entries that
I learned
they
all
don't
my
look
initial
like
modern
leg lock stuff
off of Lister.
Most of my stuff is from Lister and Kazushi Sakuraba, but
I don't have a lot of Sakuraba stuff. I have a lot of like I bought like Catch and like
favorite.
I used to watch every Lister instructional that I could find.
That's
and as a result, I do ankle locks super weird because I do them like the way Lister does them. And it's a super weird grip that he uses, but he talks through why he uses the grip. It's like, I'm like a white belt. I'm like, oh, definitely, that's how you should do it.
I also, one of my coaches in Philly was Rick McCulley, who was an ADCC guy from the early times that was a leg lock specialist at that time, which wasn't really a thing.
Was him and Lister.
It was like him and Lister, and he's notorious for losing to all of the best guys. Like that's what he says. It's his thing, is that he lost to every single one of the most incredible jiu-jitsu players of his time, and he's right. He was up there in the ranks with them, but then would lose to guys like Lister. I don't think he actually had a fight with Lister, but like he would lose to guys of that caliber in the later matches of ADCC. But anyways, I learned a lot of my leg lock later parts of my leg lock game from him too. So it's all very unique. Anyways, well,
no, it's a kind of a non-sequitur, but it goes back to our point that there's a couple of different styles of leg lock, and for me, it's frustrating to talk about because for those guys in their styles, I can talk about like, oh, it looks like a Paul Harris leg lock, where it's like it's a certain type of entry with how he hinges his body and how he falls back for it that looks like Paul Harris. You look at Gordon Ryan and the Danaher system, like it's a certain style of spin under and like grab the legs. Lachlan Giles, it's a certain way. Like the way they move looks particular, and I don't have any analogs for Acasio and Cummings, and that's like frustrating because there's a great thing that Ocasio does here, which he does a long leg de la long leg de la X guard.
Yeah.
And Adam Ferreira does a great job here and does the thing that I've seen Wagner Rocha do in his Dante Leon match at Grappling Industries, where he does this basically one-legged pistol squat in trying to essentially get your outside leg far enough away to get out of the long leg X De La Riva X. And you see Ocasio like deal with, okay, Adam is now at a full squat. I can't take him any further now because I'm going to have to lean in and he's going to get control of my shoulders and chest. So what he does is he goes underneath and elevates almost in like a traditional X guard or like a single leg X, and then goes back to attacking the leg lock. Yeah. It was just a really cool little transition. You saw Ocasio hit, I think, a couple of these, a very short match, but a couple of these really interesting transitions where you see Ocasio, like, he starts to enter something. Adam basically uses incredible balance and distance management.
That's actually what I had, is that he played this balance game really well for a while. He caught up with them.
And again, he's a Wagner guy.
Yeah.
Like, Adam, he's a Wagner Rocha martial arts guy, which, like, and if you ever watch a Wagner fight, like, Wagner will get into these positions where it's like, bro, you're going to fall over. And Wagner's just like,
he doesn't.
I'm not. I'm used to, like, being on the outside and having that top control balance where you have one of Wagner's legs and it doesn't matter because he can just bounce on top of you. And Juni kind of very quickly makes the read that, okay, I'm not going to be able to off balance this guy effectively, you know, because what Juni does typically, he'll knock you over to your hip and then he'll enter into your leg and then finish you sort of to the side.
Yeah.
And so he realized, okay, I've got to go underneath you because you're going to balance on me. And it was very interesting to see Ocasio seemingly make those decisions in the match of like, this is what I want. Okay, you're giving me this outside balance position. I'm going to have to go under you, and essentially what is like X guard, and get the leg lock from there.
Yeah. And he did.
Super neat. Super neat match.
It was a good match.
Very quick. You should watch the match just because.
Quick, but a lot happened.
Yeah.
And I think both competitors looked good in it. You know?
Yeah, Adam was very good. I mean, he defends 3 separate entries, and most guys can't do that with Ocasio. And then Ocasio just, you know, you watch him kind of figure it out, think, and then just swim under, and then just gets the leg lock. It was
nice. Really
great positioning and really good defense as long as it lasted from Adam. So very fun match. Let's move through some of these matches. I'm going to read the names so that I don't unleash Zach upon us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sean Ambrosio defeats Dustin Burrett via decision. Alexander Dantas defeats Jeremy Diaz via decision. Felipe Amarante defeats Gabriel Sacramento via knee attack in the half guard lockdown. Lockdown tap, which I'm hoping there's no injury for Gabriel here, because those are kind of nasty. Yeah, they get
strange.
They get weird and funky. Yuri Villefort, thank you, Zach. Defeats Eric Alequin via decision. Kennedy Berman defeats Alex Jutis via decision. Joaquin Torres defeats Kali Nascimento via decision. JZ Calvacante defeats Justin Rennick via decision. Alexander Pamel defeats Guillermo Neves via omoplata. Daniel Frondora defeats Jim Allers via injury. That I said Allers really funny. Jason Vellante defeats Forrest Giovanni Moyano via inside heel hook. Mauricio Gomez defeats Frank Rosenthal via rear naked choke. We'll talk about this a little bit. Mauricio makes a small adjustment here to get Frank Rosenthal's back when Frank Rosenthal tries to go for essentially like a Granby roll.
Yep.
And he just follows Frank's hips on the Granby, puts his hand in front, and just takes the back.
Well, what was interesting about it for me was that he didn't, at least in my eyes, didn't just like casually take the back. Rosenthal was trying to turn back into him like he should have. Like it was a small footstep over. Like Gomez takes this like tiny little step aside, and then Rosenthal realizes what's happening and starts turning back into him. And then there's this period where they're sort of like chasing each other.
Yeah.
And Gomez does a really nice job staying ahead of him. And that's how. And then he gets the body lock. And then once he gets the body lock, there's still more chasing happening. Right. Rosenthal's still trying to turn in, and Gomez is still beating him to the punch on those like quick little turns, and then eventually he's able to like settle into the full body lock position and then move up to the back.
Yeah, the back kick here was next level. It was really cool to watch. I love watching a guy do the correct thing, and you have another similar leveled grappler realize like, oh, he's doing the thing.
Yeah.
Get ahead of them, and then both the guys run to the position, and you watch the guy basically outrun the person trying to escape the position to get to the back. It's just such a cool little exchange.
And like I think a lot of us that have been doing this for a while know what that feeling is, where there's like this high intensity, like, your heart jumps up into your throat and you're like, oh shit, this is happening. I know how to do this and I just gotta beat him to it. And then like there's this,
and it happens on both sides.
Yeah,
the guy defending the back and the guy taking the back, where it's like, okay, I've got to make my shoulder roll here. I've got to get my hips flat and turn over while I block this hand from coming in. And then it's just a really, really interesting exchange here to get the back off of just a really small, like, Frank makes the roll a little more slowly than Mauricio here. And that's like...
He was also on the bottom, with his hands on the mat, so it's harder for him to turn a little faster, whereas Gomez is, he's able to, like...
He's like on the feet and the knees.
Yeah, he's on his feet and knees, which is a little easier to turn, so he has the advantage for his speed.
And then what I love about it is you're also kind of underratedly, you can use gravity to fall down.
Yeah.
And so when you're in a position, you can essentially just drop all of your weight and close the additional space just with gravity on a guy's back, and that's what he kind of uses here. It was just a really nice back take, and then 5 or so minutes of hand fighting, maybe 4 or 5 minutes of hand fighting.
He was defending for a long time.
And then Mauricio very slowly gets more and more and more control. I wish there was an overtop camera for this one.
It was hard to see, but I actually think that he finished with he didn't finish with like the traditional rear naked.
Yeah.
He finished with sort of a chicken wing grip on
one-armed grip.
And then finished with one arm in, which is not something you see often.
No.
Definitely not.
Tonin finish like that.
Have we?
Not recently.
Oh, okay.
But in his older match, a lot of times you see Tonin finish the one arm. That's why he's called the Lion Killer. He finishes the one arm choke, not infrequently, but in his high level matches recently, you haven't seen it as much.
Yeah.
It is kind of a rare thing to see, but
that's how he finished.
Yeah.
It seems
the
like
hand control was really great here. You saw Mauricio like climbing up, getting the 2-on-1 control, then getting under the arm and controlling the top of the wrist on the hand for the hand that Frank was using to defend. I wish the camera angle was a little more over so you could watch the whole sequence happen, because again, if you've watched any guy recently do what Mauricio was doing, it's always kind of a pleasure for me to watch that, because you see like the little adjustments that they make and keep positioning, and especially having watched a lot of Frank and seen Frank live do this in EBI overtime matches, the way that Frank is able to peel guys off the back is very, very good. So I was especially impressed with Mauricio's here ability to stay on the back for as long as he did, because I've seen firsthand Frank's ability to get guys off the back in overtime situations where they start there. Better yet, Mauricio gets the back and is able to control it dynamically. So very, very nice match. Mauricio takes that rear naked choke. We have any others on that match? We have Rodrigo Fracconi defeating Andrew Franco via decision. We have Sean Joseph defeating Guillermo Glauco Lima via decision. On the brown belt matches, we have Dan Cabrera Martinez defeating Albert Santos via decision. We have Colin Santana defeating Benjamin Tawaski via knee bar. We have Thiago Alves defeating Josh Silveira via decision. We have Thales Pointes defeating Kevin Grandos via cross choke. On the purple belt matches, we have Marcelo Andre Pereira defeating Jonathan Yap via split decision. We have Felipe Chavon defeating Carlos Inviernes via decision. We have Daniel Wyatt defeating Julio Diaz via decision. We have Gabriel Alberto Barcos defeating Philip Jackson via decision. We have Edgar Vela defeating Jose Gonzalez via decision. We have Andres Castro defeating Michael Johnson via split decision. And we have Chris Daniels defeating Anthony Valdez via inside heel hook. And we have Abigi Tertelen defeating Christian Zinko via decision. I apologize to absolutely everyone for the butchering of the names that I just committed here. Wait till Josh or Emil or the name guys come back, because Zach and I are not those guys. So good fun event. Go back and watch the matches that we talked about and some of the other matches. It was honestly a good card. First full card of the year for Fight to Win. Always a pleasure for them coming back next week. So that is all I have for the recap section of the show. Moving on to the previews. We have events. We're back on the regular schedule. Let's kick it off with the preview for Fight to Win 161. This one's headlined by Roberto Cyborg Abreu versus Tim Spriggs.
Seems like a good card. We haven't seen Tim Spriggs in a while. Tim Spriggs is an incredible competitor.
Tim Spriggs. Was it at Pans? Did we see him at Pans?
I don't think we saw him at Pans. Maybe Nogi Pans?
I don't know.
But I don't think so. It's been a while since we've seen Tim Spriggs, but he's always a good competitor.
You can't bet against Cyborg.
You can't bet against Cyborg. I would be incredibly surprised if Tim Spriggs pulled this off. Not to say that he can't. Tim Spriggs is an excellent jiu-jitsu player.
I'm curious if it's gi or no gi, honestly.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Because
that makes a bit of a difference.
We've seen Tim for a fight to win, do both gi and no gi.
Yeah. We haven't seen Cyborg in the gi in a while, have we?
No, I don't think. I would assume it's no gi.
I assume it's no gi because it's Cyborg.
But again, Cyborg's
maybe
a
not.
gangster. I think this is also in Miami. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me. Did we see him? I think the match with Lovato was no gi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, for this one, I don't know, man. They fought each other a bunch. I think 5 times. I think that particular one was no. Which is why
one was no gi. But I'm thinking of
no-gi.
older ones in the gi. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
It's been a while since we've seen him in the gi. I think it's been a while since we've seen.
See, I follow him on Instagram, so like I see him in the gi not infrequently.
Right. Sure. Training.
Better thing is last time since we've covered him in the gi.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know what he's done, but we usually cover him in no gi.
Yeah.
So let's say this is no gi. I'm gonna give this to Cyborg just because
it's hard to bet against him right now. He's been on a tear.
Beat Kynan.
He's been on a tear.
Yeah, really. His 2020 was just
the best in all of jiu-jitsu.
Absurd.
Yeah,
it was just absurd.
Incredible.
We talked about it on the year-end recap show. Yeah. It was absurd. I can't reasonably bet against Cyborg because I was wrong in 2019 too many times, and I was like, okay, 2020,
that's it.
Not betting against Cyborg, and then he proved me right all of 2020. So, just on merits alone, the dynamic of the match, I definitely see this being a lot of stand up. I look for Tim to throw the train wreck throw, which is like a variation of it's like a foot sweep variation.
Oh sure, yeah.
Or like a big ass snap down. I see Cyborg most likely shooting a blast double at some point late in the match and controlling. I could see Tim pulling here, depending on what Cyborg does. But realistically, I see Cyborg like being more active here, potentially even getting like through the guard and finishing on top.
Well,
Spriggs.
Either way, I'm excited to see Tim Spriggs back on the mats again.
Yeah,
it's been a while since I've seen him, and
he's
I think
a
it's been a
local
while
guy for us.
Yeah, he's a local.
So he's a local Maryland, DC guy. Next match.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, next match we have Tex Johnson versus Arnaldo Maidana. I don't think these guys had fought in the last couple of months when we've covered them.
No. It's gonna be a good match though. This is a good matchup.
Yeah, I kind of want to favor Tex via ankle lock here.
I kind of do.
I just feel like Arnaldo's going to stand up at some point on Tex with Tex pulls, and Tex is going to go to the outside with the ankle. Again, this could be gi or no gi. I have no idea. I'm guessing
no gi again.
Gi.
Oh, you're guessing gi.
I don't know why I'm guessing gi.
Okay.
Could be no gi as well, but I for some reason, I just feel like Tex is going to go long with an ankle lock.
I think if it's in the gi, Maidana might. I might switch my vote to Maidana if it's in the gi.
You think just top passing?
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of more control. I think Tex Johnson's clearly excellent at the leg locks in gi and no gi, but I think Maidana's control on top in the gi is very good, and I think that in the gi he might be able to stabilize enough to prevent Tex Johnson from really getting underneath him well. So I might switch. Yeah, I might switch if it's in the gi. If it's no gi, I'm going Tex.
Yeah, I tend to always favor Tex via like baseball bat break of the leg. But again, I'm wrong not infrequently with that pick. But it's always whenever I see Tex Johnson match, it's always sort of my go-to pick. Just given the prevalence and the frequency in which, like, there's certain guys that I will always pick by a certain thing because historically, like, I hedge my bets in a way that I think will like statistically work in my favor, and then Beal's going to go statistically that's wrong.
Yeah.
But I just think Tex Johnson via ankle lock here. Some other fun matches on the card. We have Jason Rao versus Enrico Coco. Yeah. We just saw Jason Rao versus William Tackett a little bit ago, and Tackett looked amazing in that match versus Rao, but Rao has some good defense. Rao is a very, very good leg locker and knee bar guy, and I think Coco is going to definitely engage him in that.
I think both guys are up-and-coming players that I'm excited to see continue to have fights, and so this will be an interesting match just because both of them are...
Yeah. I'm really curious about the dynamic of the match because I think both guys are very, very willing to engage in the leg locks, and that's always, and both guys are willing to like go and sell out for the finish. So that's why those kind of matches always intrigue me because, like a lot of times when you see two leg lockers willing to play leg locks with each other, it's not stally because guys are trying to defend. It's both guys are actively trying to work. So this one could be a really, really fun match. We also have. I can never say Saljo's name. Saljo Burnham versus Anthony Burshak. Should be an interesting match. And We have Brendan Allen on the card versus Andre Porfirio. We have Hassan Rita versus Adrian Benavidez. I'm really not familiar with Adrian offhand, but Hassan Rita, we talk about him not infrequently. Now, in the U.S., black belt, I think he changed with Garmo, who's also on this card and doesn't have a matchup yet for this card. But look for Hassan Rita to be aggressive and going for the sub.
He had, if I remember correctly, I don't know if this is going to be gi or no gi, but he had a solid run at not a major. I don't think it was one of the majors.
It wasn't a major.
It was like Atlanta Open. There were so few
It was
tournaments.
the first tournament he came over for. It was I think it was Atlanta Open.
I want to say, but
and
he went on a
just
tear
ran
there.
through his division. I think he only lost in the finals of Absolute.
I think that's true.
But he subbed, I think, through his entire division aside from that.
And he looked good doing it.
If you go back and watch, Flo has a quick cut basically of all of his finishes for his matches. I think it was Atlanta Open.
That sounds right to me, but it was definitely not a major. But it was one of those because there were so few IBJJF tournaments last year.
We watched
I watched some of those. The non-majors, like the Opens, I watched a little bit of.
There's a really good cut-up of that, so watch him. This will be the first time, I think the first time we've seen Hassan Rita on Fight to Win. Always excites me when that happens. Again, given Hassan such an aggressive finisher, should be fun.
It'll be exciting.
There's a bunch of other fun matches on the card, and looks like a really fun card. It is a full card. I think this one is Miami. I don't know. I had it up earlier, and I just can't find it. But given the people, Miami wouldn't surprise me, although I've been wrong before.
Yeah.
So that's all we got, I think.
Yep.
You got anything else going on this fun week? This week for fun, Zach?
Not really.
Not really. I was off today because it's a holiday, Martin Luther King Day. That was nice. Cleaned up the house. I got fiber. I got fast internet out the house. Yeah. I'm so excited.
I can't get that.
No.
I can't get it.
I didn't think I get it either. And then the guy showed up at our door and was like, knock, knock, which we never answer when someone knocks. And
it's always someone trying to sell me fake energy.
And then Rachel was like, yo, it's the Verizon guy. And he's like, he can give us cheaper, faster internet. And I went oh yeah, gig up and down. I was like, oh my God, it's the dream come true. I can have 1,000 megabit up and 1,000 megabit down. I upload so much shit for the podcast.
Yeah.
That will make my life extremely better.
Yeah.
So we have that. That was the big.
I'm jealous.
The big change. I'm jealous of me. I'm doing it. I've only got 490 up and 180 down. Or sorry, 180 upload and 480 down. But I'm still that's still better than what I had.
Yeah.
It's not what I'm paying for technically, but
it never is. You never get what you pay for.
No, but I'm super excited to hopefully upload the podcast in less than an hour or 2 hours. So that will be amazing. We'll see tomorrow when the video show goes up. How in actuality how much faster it is, but you'll hear this on the following week's show about how fast. It was 8 minutes. I'm amazed. But yeah, that's all I got going on.
That's about as exciting as it gets right now.
Yeah, pretty much snowed on me a little bit today. But that's all I got going on. Get the vaccine. It's coming. I know friends now, people that are getting the vaccine.
Yeah, I know a bunch of people. I'm in medicine to some degree. So
it's super exciting. I'm I can't wait. I'm ready for it.
I'm ready to do an open mat again. I have dreams about open mats.
I just want to compete again. Yeah, I want to train. I just want to train with people that's not
train
Rachel.
With anyone that's not the one person I've trained with. Not that I don't enjoy training with him, but
it's been a while.
It's been 100 hours with the same person at this point. So
Rachel is sick of me training. We're probably going to pull out the mats right behind you tonight and train directly after this show. So I'm ready for it. I missed my friends. Get the vaccine, let's get safe, and let's have a great 2021. Even though this is not the New Year show, that was last week.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Well,
as always on the show, I'm your host, Main, and the co-host,
Zach.
And we are the Grappling we're going to see on the mats whenever that is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.